All right, guys, back for another episode of What in the World. We want to Before we get started, I want to jump out with a little ad spot here from my buddies that have come along beside us. Going to be a sponsor partnership for us this year. The Deck. It's a local fast food restaurant here in the Columbia, Mississippi area, which is where I'm based out of. It's good food fast, and it's fast food good. As they say, it's ridiculous. Look, folks, I don't write it, I just read it. So, look, today we're going to jump in on What in the World with Mr. Bill Foster. And for those of you that don't know who Bill Foster is, he's going to be the next Clint Eastwood. So let's get him on the show and let's kind of cover his story. Bill, how you doing today, brother?
I was doing a lot better than I've been the last 2 years, but I'm doing pretty good today.
Now, look, I told everybody before you came on that you're going to be the next Clint Eastwood, so don't disappoint me, okay?
I hope I don't disappoint you.
We're going to give it our best shot, that's for sure.
All right,
Keep
for
on.
for some of our viewers, well, let's go back. I had a previous project called World of Wally where I actually sat down and had a conversation with Bill for almost a solid hour one day. And
Yes, sir.
he had the weirdest retirement plan I had ever heard of. And when I got off with him and I ran that episode, I thought back and I thought, man, that sounds like a crazy dream, but maybe it'll work. And look at this, almost 2.5 years later, it looks like it is. Bill, why don't you, first of all, for those that didn't get a chance to hear our original conversation and for our viewers today, why don't you share just a little snapshot of what you did all those years you wasted before you became a movie star?
Well, I started
I
out
was a vocational agriculture teacher and then crossed over the desk to principal. I was an elementary principal for 15 years. The couple of years before that, I was a principal of K-12 school, and then I crossed over a different desk to superintendent for 11. And after 11 years of that, I figured 33 years I'd tortured everybody long enough, and so I retired and thought I was just gonna grow grapes because we'd started as a vineyard. And then one night I saw an ad for an extra in a movie called The Sun, or TV series. And so I thought, well, I'll apply. I'm retired. I got plenty of time. Maybe I'll be lucky enough to get a part walking down the street. And I was selected to be a featured extra, which you're right there beside, Pierce Brosnan and all the rest of them. You just don't have any lines. And then, I did several shows. I do hold some kind of a record because at one time on a Sunday, I was in the number one movie in the nation and the number one TV series in the nation. I was in Alita Battle Angel with Christoph Waltz for the number one movie. And the number one TV series at that time was Fear the Walking Dead. I was 2 seasons of that, season 4 and season 5. The first season I was they called a vulture. We were going to overthrow the main group. You never can do that, and the end result's never good when you get cast for that. And then after they killed me, they brought me back as a zombie or a walker, and I did that for another season. And
Well, that
then
makes sense.
in the process,
If they killed you, of course you had to come back as a zombie.
That's right. That's right. And
Yeah.
they send you to zombie school.
actually, and teach you how to walk like a zombie and act like a zombie. Believe it or not, some people cannot get it. And so they put them way back there where they just a blurry object, make it look like there's more, walkers. But I thought it was fairly easy, but some of them just could. They're like out like a Sunday stroll, and you're like, zombies don't walk like that. But and then I've always been a writer, as you mentioned first time, and I'd written a script, and I thought if they can do it, I can do it. Maybe cheaper and maybe at least as good. And my last day on Fear the Walking Dead, I looked around at all those 18-wheeler full of cameras and equipment and everything else. I thought, how in the world are we going to do this for 4 people as our crew, or maybe a few more at times? And so we did. We made Showdown on the Brazos a feature, and now it's taken right at 6 years to get it out. We waited 3 years on 3 people, and I've learned a lot there. I've learned how to edit myself, so I don't have to wait on anybody else. Nothing against the 2 guys that were editing; they did a good job, but they had other jobs to go along with this. And then uh, did that, and along the way, I should have started out making short movies, the easy ones, comparatively speaking. But no, I had to start out with a full feature, and so did that, and then I started making some shorts. And the first short I made, it's on YouTube, called "I've Got Your Six," and that's a numerical six, not the word six. And everybody in it is a military veteran. We've won awards all over the world. I was actually the director of the month in Milan, Italy during that time. And we've got another one online right now. It's called For Better or Worse, a COVID movie. And so you can Google either one of those, or Bill Foster or Quail Whistle Productions, and those are on YouTube. We don't know exactly where Showdown's going to be just yet. We're going to have some premieres, one in Houston, San Antonio, Brownwood, and Graham. That kind of got the people that were in it so they can travel to the premiere. But, I've been talking to people from Los Angeles and different places trying to get distribution, so we'll see where that goes. But awards in Cannes, France doesn't hurt anything. So we won two awards from Cannes, and three more nominations. So I was tickled pink on that, and it's won some more awards. Showdown has. So hopefully we get going pretty
Well,
soon. And
just a curiosity
we're in the
question.
process.
Before you
Yeah.
started making all these films, all these film projects, how many trips had you made to certain places? Like the Cannes Film Festival, for example. How many trips had you made there before?
Never been to a film festival in my life until I started making movies.
So
Now I was
everything's been a
always my
learning
wife would get
process.
it has, and my wife would always get mad because when we'd go on vacation, I'd always find some place they film movies, and I'd say I got to see it. And she goes, "It's just buildings, or it's just a farm or whatever." And I said, "Man, I love it. I got to look at it." And I found all places where Lonesome Dove was filmed and places like that. Excuse me, but. I'd never been to a film festival. Like I said, I should have started out with a short, but I didn't. I started out with a full feature, with 300, turned out 350 plus people in the movie. And that was a lot of people. And I fed everybody. I told them I can't pay them, but I'm going to feed you, and we're going to have fun, and we're going to make a movie. So, and that's what we did. I've been to some that they wouldn't even feed us when you first start out, because I read an article. If you want to act, you take anything you can get at the beginning, and it makes you have that resume, and you move on up. I got to be on the Coen Brothers movie, Ballad of Buster Scruggs. I got, you could see me in that one, so that was amazing getting to work with them. And so, it's just kind of been fast and furious since then, except for the last 2.5 years. But before that, we were fixing to hit it big. Hopefully we'll get back to that point here in just a little bit.
All right, so I got a few questions. Let's do a little recap here.
Okay.
Because you just covered quite a bit. Let's recap. All right, 33 years of education. You retired. You
Yes, sir.
were going to create the biggest, most impressive vineyard that's ever been seen
Right.
in your region. How'd the vineyard
Right.
turn out?
Yeah. We went and bought.
30.
We sold it when I got sick.
We were just making wine. It was growing like you wouldn't believe. And when I got sick, my wife said, I ain't doing this by myself. And so we had to sell it. And man, I couldn't cry because I was so sick. I didn't care at that point.
Right,
But we
right.
sold it and had to sell our family farm because I'd inherited that from my dad, and I just couldn't
Right.
work them. So uh, we had to get rid of those. And yeah, but that's my plan. I was just going to grow grapes because
Grow
Texas
grapes.
had a shortage of grapes, and I was going to do that, and that was going to be my holy grail, I guess you could say. And then I started doing the acting and fell in love with that. And the rest is history, I guess, or maybe the history that hadn't been written yet.
And for clarity's sake, the Cohen movie that he's referring to, The Ballad of Buster Scruggs, he said that he appeared in it. Well, part of him appeared
Yes.
in it. We didn't get to see.
I
We didn't get to see it. We didn't get to see all of him.
Yeah, if the first, not the very first segment,
But when Buster goes into town, he's in that little canteen at first, like 4 or 5, and then he rides into another town where he starts talking about San Saba and all that. If you look over to the left hand side of the screen, you'll see me. I've got a ratty top hat on. You see me stand up a couple of times, and I make my dancing debut in that movie when the guy gets shot on, and he's laying there on the floor, and his brother's sitting there crying. It's kind of a comedy. You see some feet in the background dancing. That's my feet. So,
There you go.
and I
Yeah,
have
yeah.
no rhythm.
Another skill he unleashed on the world.
Yeah.
All right. So
But we had a
so
blast,
so
Filmed
we
4
covered the
days
vineyard.
on
We covered the Coen brothers. Now you also
right.
you had a bit part in, like you said, Alita: Battle Angel, which was a pretty popular movie at
Yes,
one
sir.
point. You said it was number one,
Yeah.
and it wasn't a real huge role, but I bet it was extremely
No.
educational, seeing the whole process unfold in front of you.
Oh yeah. And then I got like
3 or 4 seconds by myself on the big screen, and then Christoph walks around the corner and looks at me and keeps on walking. So I was real shocked when I got 3 seconds of just me on there. And so if y'all seen the movie, I'm the drunk laying there on the side of the street on that little chair that when Christoph starts walking out. And his Alita follows him, see where he's going. But we got to see him rehearse the fights, the 3D stuff they worked on, which we swore we can't tell. But that was all neat. And, that's beyond my league. I'm not ever wanting to deal in that as a movie producer. I like to deal with the real landscapes and the real people and things like that. Now, eventually, we may do some green screen just because, out of necessity. But if I'm going to film a wagon train, I want to go to where I can roll a wagon train across the prairie. That's what, to me, that's more real than, green screening and everything else. But
Right.
everybody has tricks.
Well, most films these days are fantasy anyway. I mean, they're putting
right.
stuff on screen that only you can think of in your mind. You would never have. 20 years ago, they're putting stuff on screen now that 20 years ago, I would have never. I mean, I had a pretty vivid imagination. There's no way I could have even believed that they could have pulled off some of the stuff they do now.
Oh yeah, and they can take what's called green,
Like I mentioned earlier, green screen, and when the people are all in front of it and everything. And when you see it on TV, they put complete cities there on that green screen. They make it where, they can computerize the green screen. One that I worked on just before I got sick was for Taylor Sheridan, 1883. And got to work in Fort Worth with him. I meant to mention that a while ago. And then we went out to the 4 Sixes and finished it on our part and got to spend 6 days out there. And they picked us up. They put us up in the hotel. They picked us up at 4:30 in the morning and dropped us back off at 9 o'clock that night. And so that was for 6 days in a row. So you had to sleep fast as you could. You had to
That's it.
get in that bed and go to sleep.
Now, what capacity did you serve on the 1883 project?
I was a townsperson,
And you see just a glimpse of me in the very beginning. Uh, when they're in Fort Worth, but if you watch episode 6, you'll see me a lot. In fact, I'm staring up at the girl as she rides into town. Faith Hill and her daughter ride into town, and they've got just me in the background staring up at the girls, and they wanted us to act like we've never seen women in years, and so they're riding into a town full of men. So I've got another shot right there, and so got the I don't know, the close up, I guess, again.
Episode 6. I'm going to go back and watch it now because I watched all of that and I didn't catch it. So
you
I'm
can
going to
see
go
me
back and watch
moving
it now.
around in the background. Yeah, background. A lot of people
Think you're there to be a star, and those get kicked out pretty quick. You're there to make the stars look good, because if you
Right.
take all the background out, there's no movie. But there was some there that would walk to the wagon wheel and turn around, look at the camera, and pose. They cut them real fast. Then they don't ever put those. When they figure out who you are, they either cut you loose or don't put you in the movie. They set you on a chair and you sit there going, "Why can't I get in?" And that's usually the reason. You're trying to be the star of it. Act natural, listen to what they tell you, and you'll end up like I've been. You get some TV time or movie time all to
Right.
yourself, or at least get a close up or two. So, and
All
if you
right.
don't,
Act
have
natural.
fun and go on with it.
That's good advice right
That's
there
right.
for anybody that wants to be an actor.
That's right.
Act natural or you end up on the cutting room floor. I
I
guess they
tell you
don't. I
what, the
guess
hardest thing to
I said cutting room floor. Technically, you're just evaporated on a hard drive now. You're not really on the cutting room
yeah,
floor anymore.
right.
That's old
You know
school.
the
I
hardest
apologize.
thing to do? Yeah, you know what the hardest thing to do is to walk naturally across the room with the camera on you, and not look at the camera. That is the hardest thing to do. Just walk like across the room, the camera see your right or left, and you're supposed to walk across there normal. So that makes it tough. It's hard to do that.
Do
And
you
at a
naturally want
commercial
to
break, I
look at
may
the
have to
camera?
plug my phone in because I, yeah,
Huh?
and people
That's
do.
crazy.
You got to
And
cut those out.
you say that, and I guess that makes sense because if I was walking across the room and I knew somebody was over there filming it, I naturally would turn. It would be so, that'd be
Yeah,
weird. There, that's now
and
you got me all nervous. See,
that really hurt
I
us.
was going to be an extra in your next little project, but now I'd be staring at the camera too much.
Yeah.
All
Well,
right,
and that really hurt us when we was filming Showdown. We'd film like 4 times a scene and it'd be great. And then when we get ready to put it together, there's one person in the background staring at it. And you're like, oh no. And so you'd have to cut that or trim it, try to get those people out or maybe blur them. So if you could use the scene at all, whether you could or not. So those are some of the things you think anybody can be an extra and they can't. I found that out. One of my main deals on making this movie was to give a lot of the extras that I've worked with before lines in the movie, and they all did great. But we had a lot of people getting experience as an extra, and I thought anybody could, and believe it or not, they can't. It's really tough for some not to look at that camera, not to walk normal.
yeah.
You just act like you said, act normal as you can be, and you got to walk down the street. You just walk down the street, and sometimes it's a little difficult for some
Yeah.
people.
I tell people all the time, everybody's not a natural like Stefano DiMero. There's
That's
an old
right.
school reference
That's
there, huh?
right.
Stefano. Yeah. You know who I'm talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, one
Yeah.
more. I need to get one more quick plug in for one of your projects, and then we'll talk a little bit about Showdown because since that was your kind of
Okay.
pet project, it kind of got you started. The Sun. What did you do? Like, what was your capacity on the Sun?
I was let's see, what they call us. You would ask that. That was my very first one. We were is an outlaw group. I can't remember what they were, but there was 5 or 6 of us that would follow one of the guys that owned the saloon. We were his bouncers, I guess you could say.
Oh, okay.
And we would follow around harassing people. And there's one scene that uh, they tell me we're going to harass people because it was the white establishment versus the Hispanics in the movie. They were fighting each
Mhm.
other. And this one Hispanic lady was walking through town, and we cut her off. And they had me walk around behind her so she couldn't go anywhere. And I stood behind her, and they said, "Look at her, intimidate her, give her bad looks." And so, I was smoking a cigar, and I blew smoke in her face one time. That didn't make the cut. I guess when you
Probably
blow
upset her
smoke
too.
yeah, she gave me a look that I could have been cut right there.
You should have used
But
her look.
yeah, they could have cut me, but they told me, do things like that,
Yeah.
act natural, but make her mad, and we did that, and that gave me the most exposure. And there's another scene that we had a big fight, and after it's over with, Pierce Brosnan shook my hand, said, "Good job, chap." And so that will
There
always be
you
a
go.
memory for me. That was the first movie I've ever in. Just had a blast doing it.
All right. I'm gonna ask the question that I don't know if anybody probably asked you this question, or maybe they have. I don't know. You got into the production aspect of making these projects.
Mm-hmm.
Did you
Yes,
call
sir.
in a favor or two? You've made a few contacts early in your career. Did you call in a few favors?
Well, I know
I mean,
we like I said, not with the big stars, but a lot of those extras I did work with and made association with. I did call them in. There was a group of 5 of us men that got on that same outlaw group that got to be really good friends. And I kept telling them, "Hey, when I make my movie, I'm going to include y'all." And I was able to give them all
lines. I was able to include them all on camera, and I really appreciate them for doing that. And people, believe it or not, they traveled all over to be in this movie. But like I said, we had over 350 people in the movie with extras and everybody. And when we filmed up at Graham, I had them driving in from Oklahoma. Like I said, when we were filming in Blanco, they drove in from Houston, San Antonio. I really couldn't believe the turnout we had. And the bad thing was, you can't put all your cuts on the movie. And we had a lot of really good scenes that we weren't able to put in the movie just because we had some things happen during the movie. Like one lady, she was going to be throughout the movie. We filmed, you don't always film it in the same order it's written. So we had filmed some beginning and end, but hadn't filmed the middle. And she got deathly sick and had to drop out. So we had to quickly shuffle and do some rewriting and take some scenes that we out and put some more in, try to cover that up as best we could. We had a lot of different things. We had COVID shut us down twice. The screen of the cameraman, his mother passed away. I broke my leg when the horse fell on me one day. I still worked a day and a half on a broken leg, and had a natural limp for sure. And when they x-rayed it, the doctor said if I hadn't had those big cavalry boots on, it probably would have shot out the side of my leg. But I actually ran on it one day. And but I had an actor from Los Angeles there. When he applied, I said, "Do you want to be in my movie?" He said, "Yeah, I saw the script and it's going to be beautiful and I want to be in it."
An
So
actor from
he's a,
California.
yes, sir. And you see him a lot in like,
I think I know who you're talking about. Is his name
trying
J.F.
to,
Davis?
yes, sir. Yes, sir. He's
Yeah,
been in a lot
yeah.
of movies,
I've had Mr. Davis.
shows.
Yeah, I've had Mr. Davis on the show before. Yeah, he's really good.
He, yeah, boy, I tell you what, he should have been there every day because everybody got better when he was there. But that
Yeah,
one weekend he was there, that's the weekend I broke my leg. So I couldn't say, okay, everybody go home. We'll finish up next weekend or we'll
that's
film
right.
next weekend. And so he was there. And so we finished up as best we could. There's some shots we couldn't use that I really wanted to, but we were able to kind of edit over those and make it look really well. But man, he did a great job. And like I said, everybody got better with him there because, they knew he was from LA and they knew he was a named actor, and everybody got. I wish they acted that way. Crew and everybody did such a good job that weekend. I was like, man, I ought to have him here. Just not that they did bad. It just everybody upped their game when he
Yeah.
was
Well,
there. So
that's the Hollywood type you had in there. Little name recognition.
that's kind of like having flag. Yeah, it's like playing flag football, and Troy Aikman comes and is on one of the teams. You're going
That's
to try
true.
to show
That's
out
true.
for him. And
I just
he
want
did
to
that.
I just want to take a moment and point out something you said a minute ago. I don't want the viewers to miss what you said. You had a horse fell on you and broke your leg. That is the most
Yes, sir.
John Wayne, Clint Eastwood thing I have heard this week. I love how you said, and I just limped around
And
on
it
it for
wasn't
a day
his
and a
fault.
half. Yeah, I like how you played that
Yes,
off. I'm
day and a
just
half.
gonna limp around on it for a day and a half.
I told everybody that I got shot in the leg, and that's the way I was going to change the writing for it, and so that's the way we were going to shoot it. Everybody knew the second day I was hurt because we taped ice on the outside the boot trying to keep the swelling down, and he fell on me at lunch. I was warming him up, and it wasn't his fault. Uh, and it wasn't anybody's fault. They put shavings down over asphalt for the road, and when he turned, his foot just slipped out from under him and down both of us went. And so I got back on him and wasn't going to say anything to anybody, but there's one man that saw it happen, and he went and told my wife, and then I was in trouble. She came over there and said, "What did you do?" And I said, "Just get me some painkillers." you know, but Monday,
Lord have mercy.
and that was Saturday, went all day Monday, and a friend of mine was cooking for me, and my wife went and got him and said, "You're not cooking anymore. You're carrying a chair around for him, and you make him sit down and prop his foot up every time he's not acting." And so that's what we did. But Monday, there's no way I could do it. That hurt too bad, and barely. One of the actors was a doctor in San Antonio, had me come down there and gave me a free X-ray. and they wanted to do surgery right then. And I said, man, we're in San Antonio. My wife would have to find somewhere to stay and just put a brace on it, and we'll go back to Stephenville. And I found a orthopedic surgeon here, and that was on Monday. And I had a plate put in with 13 screws on Wednesday. So that kind of tells you the size of the break, I guess you could say.
Holy cow.
And it it was I I can't remember what it's called. It's the backbone in your bottom leg. You know, you got the big shin bone and the little one
Yeah.
behind it. Yeah, I broke that pretty much in half. And so it was painful, but we got the movie done.
Well, I was going to ask you some boring questions, like how long it took you to put together the screenplay and all that, but I don't know where to go from a broken leg from a horse falling on you. So, okay, let's do some boring stuff. Like you said, you had this you said you had this project, so you had been working on it previously while you were still working that old boring education job.
Yeah.
I'm assuming, right?
Yeah. Well, I wrote one book,
And I didn't want to publish it till after I retired because I didn't want people to think I was writing. And, I wrote some children's books back when I was elementary principal, and I got accused sometimes of conflict and things like that. So I put those aside, and I wrote this Western called Showdown on the Guadalupe. And I didn't publish it till after I retired. And you can find that on Amazon.com if you're interested. And then I started on Showdown on the Brazos. And the title, I was going to change the title, but then it stuck. I was going to change it, didn't know what to change it, but I had to get a title for it. And so uh, I put Showdown on the Brazos, and that just stuck with it. But I worked writing on it for about a year. And when we filmed it, I'll tell you this, we filmed it, we had enough for a 6 hour mini series. And,
You had a little
we didn't
lonesome
want
dove
to.
action going on, huh?
yeah, I mean, we had so much, we didn't know,
I didn't know as far as that, because I didn't want to. I was trying to tell the story and get it all in there, which was good. And but we were able to tell the story where our goal was 90 minutes and comes out like 90 minutes and 30 seconds or something like that. But it tells a great story, and we got as much of it in there as we could, and so I think it turned out really well,
Well,
especially for the
now
first time.
I'm assuming it didn't stay on schedule because I mean you broke a leg, so
no,
I know that's got to be a delay. So
no.
what were some of the pitfalls you ran into while you were putting this project together?
Like I said earlier, my
Cameraman, his mother passed away, so that threw us off a month. And then, because if you don't have a cameraman, you don't have a movie.
Right, if it ain't
And
rolling,
then
it ain't a movie. All right.
right, and then I broke my leg right in there somewhere along.
and at the same time, that put us back 6 weeks at least until I could get up around and direct. Then we got shut down twice by COVID. Once we had 3 more weekends to film, had it all ready, had everything reserved. Got right before we got shut down. We got shut down, and so we're just sitting on the shelf waiting. And they finally opened it back up. We got 2 weekends filmed, and they shut us down again. And that's statewide. It wasn't just us. And so then when they finally let us start filming again, we got that last weekend shot. We called in another cameraman, so we filmed those 3 weekends with 2 cameras going, so we kind of speed things up. Which that was not my plan. It's expensive, but at least we got it done. When I say expensive, I hear what other people pay spend on a short movie, and I didn't spend anything compared to what they did on a full feature. Compared, they've got a 15-minute movie, and I'm like, wow, you spent nearly as much as I did on an hour and a half total movie. So, but you film a lot of things, and maybe it didn't fit just right, or you had that person looking at the camera, and so we really had to manipulate it around. Like I said, the poor lady that got sick, we had to change that. She was actually going to be a love interest that my character met her in town, and she was going to play both sides of outlaw and good person too. And she was going to, she had a whole storyline of trying to decide if she wanted to be a bad person or a good person. But then when she got sick, we had to take her part out and try to come up with some stuff. And we shot in the Brazos River on one scene. And after it's over with, one of the other female stars said, "Man, I wished I'd known. I'd filmed it with you, and it would have fell right in the story of making her a Pinkerton person." But we just didn't know it at the time. But anyway, the river scene turned out great. It was on my old uncle's place that's passed away, where we used to catfish all the time, and worked out. It was so hot that day one, the cameras melted. So One of the things you don't
Whoa.
see, and I'll go ahead and throw this out there. When you see a movie made, you don't know how cold it is or how hot it is when they're making that movie. Pierce Brosnan said he'd never film in July and August in Texas again. They saw 95 degrees and didn't know how hot that was and didn't know that was our low sometimes.
Well,
And
and
they,
95 in Texas is a little different than 95 in other places too.
Yeah, in fact, we were filming one day, and
the locusts or cicadas, which they're locusts here, every time they'd say action, they'd start singing in the trees and they'd say cut. And then they'd wait for them to get quiet. And we finally told them they ain't never going to be quiet. It's over 100 degrees. So they're going
Yeah.
to keep singing. So they ended up filming it, and, made great background sound for them too. So that was a lot of fun, but it was hot there. But like I said, we had one camera meltdown. We filmed in September in a saloon. Of course, it had no ventilation and thought in September it'd be cooler. And it was like 92, 93. But it was so hot in that saloon that we had to start setting the cameras in front of fans, cool them off for 30 minutes, let them get back, and then would get started, and cameras say cameras overheating, so we'd go back outside, let it cool off, and we were just soaking wet with sweat. But you can't see that in the movie.
Right.
But sometimes, when I was in Fear the Walking Dead, we were filming in the rain, and it was in December, January. So I don't know which is worse, the heat or the cold.
I think say that's got to be a miserable January.
I,
Now, Fear of the Living Dead. I know the original was
Fear
filmed
the
around
Walking
the
Dead.
Atlanta area.
Yes, Fear the Walking Dead. They filmed that around.
Austin.
Okay.
And so
Yeah, I got to walk around fire and everything else.
so it was
Yeah.
it was pretty neat the way we got to see that. Got to
But
get
in
in
the
the
rain in
gunfight.
January, that's got to be miserable.
Oh, it was cold, and I had to lay in the mud.
Because they killed me and I had to flop down in the mud and lay there, and they put the camera right over my back. So, I was so still. Finally, the man came up and said, "Sir, we're done." I was the only one left out there, but I didn't want to move in case, the camera was still there. And because they shot it 2 or 3 times. And so we got to see the ambulance they had blow up. That was pretty awesome. But I won't tell all their secrets. But it was pretty neat the way they blow it up. Just like on the Sun when the door blows up in the big gun battle.
Mm-hmm.
That was neat. And the bullets that hit the house and causing dust. That was a little trick in the movie business. I can't say because we
That's
signed
right.
an NDA.
Yeah.
But it was really good. I can say this one part.
That Pierce Brosnan's in. He's sitting behind the tree getting shot at. Well, they've got that close up on him, and stuntmen are all around, or not stuntmen, special effects men are all around him doing these things to make it look like a gun battle, and it's just him sitting there, saying these lines. So, and I used some of those things when I shot the movies. I tried to do it, but I tell you what, learning thing, and I kept telling the cameraman I needed a monitor, and we went through some back and forth, and finally got to where I could hook my nice TV. I had a TV I hooked up to his camera, and the movie scenes got drastically better because I could actually see what we were doing. First off, he was wanting me to look through the camera lens. Well, I couldn't see anything for the sun reflecting, and then we rented a monitor, and it was like a 6x6, and I said I got to see something just like the TV or the movie screen will be. And you'll see if you look at, I've got your 6, you'll see the difference a lot of times on what it looks like when I'm sitting there. I did the whole movie with the TV monitor there where I could sit back and watch. I didn't star in that one. I just wrote and directed it. And my love is directing now. I used to say 65, 35 or whatever. Now I say 95, 5. And I can't do both of them at once. I just can't. And I decided that I can't do one justice while I'm doing both. And that could be acting, it could be directing. I just can't do them both and make a justice of both characters. So I'm going to try to direct most of the time now. I might make a cameo or something, if I can't find anybody. I've got a short that we're going to film next month, and I'm going to make a cameo just because we're only using a few people, and I don't want to try to bring somebody else in for just a short thing. We're going to film it. Now, for better or worse, I filmed it all with an iPhone and edited. I've learned how to edit. So that way I can cut some more people out. We're trying to do it all in house. I'm starting to shop for cameras. They're real cheap. You know how that goes.
Yeah.
But but then that way, I can film and direct at the same time and save us a little time and energy and dollar wise. My wife was all in on it because I told her, hey, we can hire a cameraman for 11 days or buy this camera and have it paid for in 11 days. It's the option there. And then we still got the camera. So
Right.
that's why I started looking at trying to buy a camera.
Well, you brought up finance, so I got a question that we're kind of wind this episode down with, because we got still so much to
Okay.
cover. We're going to have to deal. We're going to go a second episode to finish up all this. What was the most?
Okay.
I know that's your very first project, and I know you had these glimpses into how Hollywood worked and movie productions and all that. What was the hardest part of this project? Was it the production aspect? Was it the things that went wrong that held you up from a timing standpoint? Was it the generating the finances to be able to do this project? Like, what was the most difficult part of it? Or was it? It could have been all
For
equally. I
me,
don't know.
yeah, it was really producing the other things I expected.
I expected problems on set. I expected this and that on set. Things don't work good. And I was used to that. Somebody came in and said one of the actors is mad. I never looked up. I said okay, and kept on going. It didn't bother me. And if they get mad and walk off, that was fine with me. If they stayed happy, we're going to keep rocking and rolling. It doesn't revolve around them. And so those type of problems didn't bother me. When your wife calls you to eat and you don't know whether it's breakfast, lunch, or supper, you're putting some time in the computer room, and
Mhm.
production is like that. When you're directing and doing production, you're with 350 people. Out of those, probably 300 of them were extras, and you start trying to make sure so many extras are there. You try to send them all an email and then answering those emails and giving them a spot and tell them what to do, where they'll be, and approving their costumes or saying we got some costumes, if they don't have any. So that's all long hours, boy. It's really long. Hopefully, before we do our next feature, we'll have people to do that for us. And that will make life a lot easier, because we're not going to do another one self-funded. We'll self-fund some shorts, but we're not going to self-fund any more features. They just eat you up, unless we make a lot of money on Showdown, which got our fingers crossed. But maybe that'll pay for the next one. We'll have to wait and see. But we already know probably which one that's going to be, and it's going to be filmed again here in Stephenville. And I'll make sure that you make it. It's going to be one of those, not an after-school special, but it'd be like a Hallmark type movie. Be a nice
Okay.
family movie, modern day rodeo type movie, and
Okay.
so
You said you
I think
used the
people really
term.
like it.
Well, you used the term self-funded, so that means you made so much money. Your retirement was so large that you just paid for everything as you went along, or did you have a group
I
of
had a
investors that came alongside you, or how did that work?
I had a very gracious.
Bank officer and a very loving wife. you know,
Okay.
uh,
But we should make our money back. But I wasn't going to
do the, you see I can't, there's so many of them out there where people send you 10, 15, $20. I wasn't going to do that because so many times those people say, I gave $50, I better get a line, things of that nature.
Mhm.
Most of them don't, just, but our lawyer said you have to be real careful in those because if you do hit it big, they're going to say, hey, I gave you $50. I want interest on that $50, so you got to be really careful on that crowdfunding, as they call it. Sometimes it never happens, but that was our lawyer's advice at that time. So we chose not to go that way. We may try it on our feature. Several people have told me we need to go that way, but hopefully, if we can sell Showdown on the Brazos, then we'll find a full-fledged investor that will pick up the tab. We found some
Uh,
investors for our short movies,
you were talking about
but
distribution. Have you had any of the what they call major distribution companies reach out to you about the project?
I have
two that were playing telephone tag, and there's they turn around and sell it to like Netflix and the others. So they're the distribution's that middleman. You don't ever know where they're going to sell it. And so, they get a percentage of it. We get a percentage
Right.
of it. And Netflix will get a big percentage of it. So, that's just how it works. The last person on totem pole is the person who made the movie,
Right.
unless you get it, funded and you figure your salary in there too. But a lot of the movie stars, there for a long time, they may still be doing it. They would take 10% on the end, make it pretty cheap, not charge as much per day. And they end up making a lot more money by getting 10% at the end of the, when they start selling it and it starts making big money. If they got 10% and it's $200 million movie sales, that's a pretty good little paycheck.
It sure is. Sure is.
Yeah.
Beats the heck out of teacher paid on it.
Yeah, one actor, not even an A-lister, he gets 25,000 a day.
Good
I was like,
Lord.
that's the job I need.
Man. Well, look, if I come in on a
Yeah.
project for you, I'm a C-lister. I don't need nearly that much money. All right. Now, I think this is a perfect spot to kind of shut this episode down because I told you before we got started,
Okay.
you got so much to talk about. We're going to have to do 2 episodes. So, look, for all of our viewers, make sure you tune in next week. I'm going to run these episodes back to back so you don't have to wait forever to hear the rest of his story because we hadn't even got into some of the best parts about how, you were pretty sick at one point. I was following you on social media. I wasn't sure you was going to make it at one point. So we got a whole conversation just on your illness you had to battle back from. So
Yeah, I was debating if I was going to make it or not too.
yeah, like I said, though, you'll have to tune in next week to be able to hear the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey would say. So, hey, we'll see
That's
you
right.
guys. We'll see you guys next week. And Bill, like I said, we'll jump back into your conversation and we'll finish up your story because it is an absolutely crazy, amazing story. That's for sure.
It is. Thank you.
All right, guys, we'll see y'all next week.